Welcome to the Stoic Responder Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher Healy. As a special agent who spent more than 15 years conducting large-scale fraud, money laundering, and public corruption investigations, Stoic philosophy provided a mindset edge that became the foundation of my professional success. My mission today is to share those same ancient mindset lessons with you so that you can turn obstacles into opportunities and adversity into advantage. Time to muster up. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Stoic Responder Podcast. This is episode 100. Yeah, I didn't do like any sort of celebration. I didn't plan anything special because, whatever. It's just another day. But most podcasts don't get past like 3 episodes. So to get to 100, I guess, matters. But we're just going to keep going. We're going to keep grinding these out. It doesn't really matter what number it is. It matters that we're given value, and that's what we try to do here. And today is no different. So the title of this episode today is Live in Harmony. And we're going to be digging in on the theory of positive psychology. Before we do, quick housekeeping item. Just want to let you all know and remind you that I will be recording podcasts. Obviously, you'll get 4 this week and 4 next week. But the week after that is Thanksgiving break. I'm going to be with family, going to be with friends, as I'm sure many of you are. So I'm taking the week off. I normally produce this podcast on Sunday or Monday, depending on what my week looks like, what my travel schedule is like. It takes me, 2-3 hours to do all the recording, all the editing, all the uploading. And it's a labor of love. I don't do this because it's a paid job. I do this because I want to do what I can to help and support people in the law enforcement community, in the first responder community, by putting some positive reinforcement, some mindset lessons, some tips, tools, and tactics to live your lives better out there into the universe. Feels like it's my way of giving back to this community. But even though it is not an official job, I'm still going to take a vacation from it every now and then. So I'll be taking 2 weeks off for Thanksgiving. There'll be no episodes the week of the 18th or the week of the 25th. And there will be no episodes around Christmas as well. So the week of the 23rd and the week of the 30th of December. So I'll remind you as it gets closer to that Christmas break, but just be aware if you're looking for fresh new episodes the last 2 weeks of November, I'm not quitting the podcast. I'm just taking a break, taking a vacation, as I'm sure you will be as well. So getting into the meat of the episode, as I said, this is called Live in Harmony. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of the Hungarian-American psychologist that we're talking about today. But if you want to look up this guy's seminal work, the book that we're talking about today, it's called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience. It was published in 1990. The guy's first name is Mihaly, M-I-H-A-L-Y. His last name is Hungarian and completely unpronounceable as far as I'm concerned, so I'm not going to try. So if you want to look up the book that we're talking about today, it's called Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, published in 1990. And this guy Mihaly, this psychologist who came up with this book, it's about the concept of the flow. And the flow is a state of deep engagement and absorption in an activity. And it's typically characterized by intense focus, by effortless action, and a sense of timelessness. Now, anybody who has had a hobby that they've fallen in love with, who has played an instrument, gotten really into it, who has fallen in love with a project that they're working on, has probably experienced what Mihaly is talking about when he talks about the flow. Because this occurs in sports, it occurs in music, it occurs in art, it occurs in work, it occurs in hobbies. And what essentially is whether it's playing an instrument, whether it's writing, whether it's engaging in athletic pursuits, the experience of flow leads to heightened performance, leads to heightened creativity, leads to overall well-being, because we feel like we're in harmony with nature around us. And that brings me to the quote that I wanted to introduce from the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius says, "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." And I think what he's talking about there is the same concept, the idea of being in the flow. And there's a psychology to this, and it creates optimal experience for us when we are in harmony with ourself, with our creativity, with our overall well-being. And it creates that increased happiness, that we're doing something that we're purpose-driven to do. Now, I have felt this in a number of different ways. I felt this in my athletic career when I was racing triathlon, when I was racing marathon or ultra marathon. There would be points in a race where you just felt locked in, completely locked in. Like I'm running on mile 20 of a marathon and I'm pacing exactly where I want to be. And my breath work is there. And I feel like my body feels aligned. Every step feels right. Everything feels good. And I feel like I could run for 150 miles at that pace because I'm just locked in and in that flow state of mind. I have felt this when I am writing. When I was writing my book, there were periods of time when it would be effortless. You would lock in and you would say, man, like I've been trying to do 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. I might knock out 15,000 words today. I might knock out 20,000 words today because you just feel that in the moment, that you just lock into it, that you're not in friction with the work. You're not feeling like you have to do it. You're feeling like you want to do it. I felt that way on the big investigation, my career case that I worked on that brought me around the world, that led to over 15,000 interviews with victims, the indictment of 56 individuals in 5 call centers. I felt at times in the flow in that work. I was in love with the process, in other words. It wasn't so much about the need to, I've got to get this done. I've got a deadline. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. Like those times when you have to just, put your pants on and go to work, grab your lunch pail, put your hard hat on and do the work because you have to. The flow is different. The flow is when you are just loving what you are doing so much. You're so into the work that it doesn't feel like work. The concept is very similar to this description of harmony that I just introduced from Marcus Aurelius, right? By understanding and embracing our true nature, in other words, our purpose, by being purpose-driven in what we do, and by cultivating virtues like wisdom, like justice, like courage, like temperance, we can align ourselves better with those internal truths, with that internal wisdom, with that harmony. And we can find those things that put us in the flow. Instead of being constantly concerned and worried about the external, the things that we do not control or have no control over, if we can find purpose-driven things to put our energy and effort into, it's easier for us to get into that state of optimal experience. And that's what leads to happiness, creativity, and overall well-being. But it all begins with us dropping our concern for the external, which is what Marcus Aurelius' entire philosophy is about. It's about focusing on the internal, being more introspective, being more present. Through introspection, through self-reflection, we can transcend the distractions, right? We can transcend the disturbances of the external. And that's where we define and find that, that's where we find and discover that profound sense of serenity and alignment that comes from that flow state. That's when we find that within ourselves. When we live in true harmony with our true self, when we live in harmony with the universe that we inhabit, we are more likely, again, to be fully present, to be fully engaged in the moment, experiencing a deep sense of connection, deep sense of alignment. That is true harmony. That is flow. That is positive, optimal experience. I want you to think about the times that you felt that. And it may not even be an activity that you were doing. It may be something you were experiencing. Maybe you went to a movie. You went to a movie that just drew you in, that you were completely just taken in by what was happening on the screen, that so much so that you're present in the moment that you kind of left everything else out. Maybe you went to a concert and felt that way. I feel that way. There are times when I'm stressed out, when I just need to decompress and I need to be within myself. I need to kind of just feel just presence. And what I find works best for me is listening to the Grateful Dead. I'll put on my headphones. I will listen to, if I haven't mentioned it before on the podcast, I'm a huge Deadhead, have been since I was about 10 years old when I first found American Beauty and Working Man's Dead in my parents' album collection and first listened to them. I've been a huge Deadhead ever since. For me, putting on my headphones, listening to, Barton Hall, 5877, listening to, something from the fall 77 tour, Elizabethtown, New Jersey, like listening to a concert typically from 1977 when I think the Dead was at their absolute peak. I can sit there and I can listen with my headphones on and just the world just goes away and I'm fully in the state of listening to every little piece of what's happening in the composition of the songs. And those moments when you're experiencing being absolutely present, that's the flow. That's the flow. You're feeling increased happiness, increased creativity, increased overall well-being. You are in the flow. Again, sports, music, art, work, hobbies. It happens in all sorts of different aspects of our lives, but we sometimes have to seek them out. We have to find those moments to get into that and then to experience that and then make the best of it. And we do that, again, by looking inward, transcending distractions and disturbances of the external world, and discovering that sense of serenity within ourselves. That's when we get to the flow. When we live in harmony with our true self, when we live in harmony with the universe, when we inhabit our world fully, we're more likely to be fully present and more engaged in the moment. And that's when we experience a deeper sense of connection and alignment and a higher optimal experience. And that is the entire theory of positive psychology. So let me leave you all with a journal prompt. Because you may not have thought about this in a while. I'm sure you have experienced what I'm discussing, the flow state as it's termed in positive psychology. But have you ever really thought about what puts you in that, what gets you going, what gets you into those moments? Again, there are times for me when I was writing my book when I would just feel completely in the moment and didn't want to stop. And I would just knock out 15,000 words. And there were times I would sit down and it was like pulling teeth, but I had to grind it out to get it done. So the key is maximizing those moments in your life in which you are in that moment, in which the outside world is tuned out and you focus like a laser on those things that increase your creativity, that increase your positive experience. That's how you get into that flow state. So I want you to think about and write down in your journal, make a list, write down what puts me in the flow state and how can I use that experience to create more harmony in other areas of my life. We should be constantly looking for things that put us in that mindset, that put us in that purpose-driven mindset. What is it about your job? What is it about your family? What is it about your hobbies? What is it that you can do that puts you in that space? I can tell you, I got a 11-year-old kid who is in love with drawing right now. And we got her an app called Procreate that was recommended by a professional tattoo artist friend of mine. And this is how he designs all his tattoos. She can sit down in front of her tablet and start drawing and start working on that and spend 2 full days just completely engaged in that. That is a flow state, right? That is looking inward. It becomes timeless. The things around you matter less. The distractions matter less. You transcend all of that and do the work. So be thinking about those things. Make a positive list of those things that have put you in that state of mind, that have given you that opportunity, that ability to be fully present within yourself. Because the more time we spend in that flow state, the more optimal our experience in this life is. And that's really what we're looking for. So hopefully that gives you something to think about today, folks. Again, episode 100. We'll be back with one more episode tomorrow. If you'd like to support this podcast, and I sure do appreciate those who do, the best way to do it, the best way to kind of keep the lights on here at this little podcast that could, is to pick up a copy of my book, In Valor, 365 Stoic Meditations for First Responders. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Apple Books, anywhere you get your books. It's on Kindle and Nook if you want to download it instantly, or you can get the paperback edition, which is available as well. It's a great resource for law enforcement and first responders who want to practice this philosophy daily, or really anybody who wants to practice this philosophy. I generally speak to first responders and law enforcement with this podcast because that's my lived experience, but I understand there are other jobs out there that are equally difficult, that operate in a similar, fast and rapidly evolving environment, and this philosophy is great for you as well. So you're going to get some quotes, some contextualization that's directly relatable to your job, and you're also going to get some daily journal prompts like the one that I just gave you that can help you integrate the lessons. If you would like to get these podcasts delivered directly to your email inbox, go on over to thestoicresponder.substack.com and sign up for our free email list. I promise I won't spam you. I won't try to sell you anything on that page. All you're going to get is these podcasts delivered to your email, but you're also going to get my weekly newsletters with Stoic leadership and personal development tips that you might find interesting. And finally, if you're enjoying this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe so that others can learn about what we're doing here and can get some of this stoicism for themselves. Thanks so much, folks. Like I said, I got one more episode for you this week, but until next time, you are out of roll. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, rate, and share this podcast so that we can spread the benefits of Stoicism to other first responders. It will only take you a few moments, but it can help us tremendously. Until next time, out of roll.